Okay, so we're going to finish going over some of the examples that we did not finish in our notes. So this first one here is example 2 on page 109 of the adding rationals. Okay, so remember when we add rationals, the first one we have to do always is factors. We're going to do that first. X squared minus 9 is a perfect square, or I'm sorry, a difference of two squares. So I'm going to rewrite that as x plus 3 and x minus 3. And then 2x minus 6 has a greatest common factor of 2. So if I do that, I'm going to get x minus 3. So when I look at the denominators, remember that the least common denominator that you choose is going to have to include factors from both. So obviously we're going to need to have a 2 in there. And then I'm going to have an x plus 3 since this first polynomial has an x plus 3. And then both of them have an x minus 3, so we only have to count that one time. So that's going to be our least common denominator. So that's what I'm going to choose as my least common denominator. So I'm going to rewrite the two fractions down here. And again, these are going to be my new fractions. And then remember I told you a trick for being able to figure out what has to be changed? I told you to highlight the factors that are in the old fractions with the new fractions in the denominator. So I have here, let me make this bigger. I have here x plus 3 and I have x plus 3 here. And then I have x minus 3 and I also have x minus 3 here. So what's not included? Well, the part that is not there in the original is 2. So that's what I'm going to come up here and multiply this numerator by. So that's going to give me negative 6x. And then I'm going to do the same thing over here. I have a 2 and a 2 and an x minus 3 and an x minus 3, but I don't have an x plus 3. So that's what's going to get multiplied. So when I distribute that, I'm going to get 4x plus 12. So when I add those together, I'm going to get in my numerator negative 6x plus 4x plus 12. In the denominator, the least common denominator is going to be 2 times x plus 3 and x minus 3. And then now I just need to combine some like terms. So I have these two that combine, so I'm going to get negative 2x plus 12 over 2 times x plus 3 and x minus 3. And so that appears to be my answer, but if you remember me talking about this in class, we decided that it is very important at the end to make sure that nothing factors out. And so if I look at my numerator, I can see that negative 2x and 12 have a greatest common factor. Negative 2 would be their greatest common factor. That's a little tricky. If the first term is negative, you have to factor out the negative with it. So if I take a negative 2 divided by a negative 2, I'm just going to get a positive x left. But if I have a positive 12 divided by a negative 2, I'm going to get a minus 6. So that's like the signs are changing a little bit here. So when I do that, what you should see is something now that cancels out. I have a negative 2 and a positive 2. So that's going to equal negative 1. Okay? So here's where it gets a little tricky. I can do this one of two ways. I could leave this negative in front of the whole fraction. Like that. Okay? You can just attach it like the whole fraction's negative. Or I can distribute this, and I would get negative x plus 6 over x plus 3 and x minus 3. It doesn't really matter to me which way you do it. If you want to leave it as a negative fraction, that's fine. If you want to distribute the negative 1 and multiply it out, either one of those will be acceptable. Okay?